That's what you want, isn't it? To be mine. Forever. On your knees, darling. You sweet, sweet thing. I want what's best for you too, of course. You need not fear anything. So tell me what you desire. What can I do for my dearest pet? I wish we could retreat into our palace already and spend a decade in each other's arms. The pleasure will be far greater than the pain. So, then come with me, my love, and live your final night. You have given me everything. Thank you.
Welcome to the Forgotten Realms, the home of Dungeons & Dragons and Baldur's Gate 3. Today we'll be doing a video focused solely on Ascended Astarion. We'll be discussing his relationship with the player character if you romance him, which is presented to the players as a sub-dom relationship. Keep in mind, I will be saying you throughout this video when addressing the player character. This is because that'll keep it not only gender neutral for all my guys, gals, and non-binary pals, but it also is easier to say that than player character over and over and over again. As well, you can also romance him as an origin. So saying Tav would be excluding the names of origins like Gale and Will, etc. And I say Gale and Will because I know y'all out there are Bloodweave stans, and I'm a Bladeweave and a Bloodweave girly. Hell, Baldur's Gate 3 is the only franchise I can think of in which there isn't a woman in my top 3 crushes. Although, don't get it twisted, I am thirsty for everyone, except for Shadowheart. It's become very popular in fiction and on TikTok for people to discuss sub-dom relationships, which, as a sub, kind of has me in a chokehold because for the first time since I started adulthood, what I read, what I write, what I live is actually being accepted in the mainstream. But with that acceptance comes a lot of myths, misunderstandings, and downright problematic lies about how the lifestyle works that leads toxic folks to taking advantage of others. Not unlike how the same thing happens in poly couples, the way conservatives view queer couples or drag queens. So today we'll be discussing whether Ascended Astarion is a good dom or not. And we'll be looking at it through the lens of a healthy sub-dom relationship. And as someone in the lifestyle, both who chooses to live this way, but also grew up in a D/S household, and in a religion with a lot of submission required for women, I have a unique perspective on what both the healthy and unhealthy versions of the relationship look like. This is an incredibly personal topic for me, and I feel extremely vulnerable sharing this. And in the next essay and every essay this month. But these are topics in the Baldur's Gate 3 and D&D communities that deeply matter to me. In this essay, we'll be using a variety of sources, from official D&D materials, nonfiction sources, online communities, and personal experience. We will not be quoting in this essay, but all of my sources will be in the description. As well, all images not from Baldur's Gate 3 or that are not my personal images are from Canva, CapCut, Shutterstock, or free resources like Pixabay. As I write sub-dom stories, and I have a big backlog of finished books that are just waiting for editing from years of writing before I was willing to start publishing as Kitera, I also have a lot of images that were purchased for book covers that I might use. And if you're curious, I do design my own covers. I worked in media and publishing until 2020 when, well, the Panini ruined my career and moved into legal editing, which I also love legal editing, BTW. I use a mix of Photoshop, Canva, and BookBrush. And I use images, assets, and fonts that I purchase from stock sites. I don't have the budget to commission right now, but one day it would be cool to do my own custom photo shoots again. So enough with all of the rambling on sources, and on to our trigger warnings. If you're someone who thinks all alternative lifestyles are toxic, if you think domination and submission automatically equals a power imbalance because you don't realize all parties set up terms and the sub is actually in charge, if you're gonna fly off the handle over dark romance because you think it's romanticizing toxic relationships because you can't parse out the nuance between having a safe fictional world to explore fantasy and actual reality, well, this video is gonna upset you. You've been warned. But if you love possessive book boyfriends, simp for Ascended Astarion, desire a good hand necklace, and thrive on romantic situations in which you feel small, safe, and protected, and able to step outside of stress, be a princess treatment, well, you're gonna love this one, babe. And now, For an actual trigger warning, we'll have to discuss some of the toxic versions of subdom when explaining what is and isn't healthy. If you've ever experienced SA, DV, or abusive relationships with controlling partners, this video may have moments throughout it that could impact you. So please proceed with caution, as they'll have no warnings before discussing it at this point. I love having you here, darling, but if you need to skip this one or straight to the final chapters for your mental health, I'll harbor no ill feelings. As well, to appease our YouTube overlords, we'll be using terms like spicy to replace all triple X words, as well as some other creative cute swaps. However, this topic overall might get that yellow mark of destruction, so please, if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button, comment, and share it with a friend on Discord, as videos smited by the yellow button typically don't get put in the algorithm. I learned that the hard way with my book review video. And don't forget to consensually smash that subscribe button. My YouTube overlords seem to think that only 10% of you who come back every week are going to subscribe, and I think we can totally kick their peaches and prove them wrong. And if we hit 5K by the end of the year, I'll do a very special Ascended Astarion project. Now, let's grab our cozy drink, lie back, and relax, darling, because I'm about to go a little deep. So, what is a sub-dom relationship? Sub-dom, sometimes presented in writing as capital D/lowercase s, is a relationship dynamic in which one partner takes on a leading role, while the other partner prefers to take on a submissive role. This dynamic can manifest in various ways or portions of life, and does not necessarily define every aspect of a couple's lives or dynamics. If you're into commentary channels, you've likely heard about trad wives. These couples technically fall into a version of sub-dom, but more in a religious and daily life aspect. Editing kit here, I forgot to add, they're an example of one of the toxic versions of this relationship dynamic. Not all of them, but the ones that are popular online. But if you want a video on that, you're going to have to comment down below, because today we're just talking about Starry. Whereas BDSM, which can stand for bondage, sadomasochism, or bondage dominance, and submission, is a form of subdom that is related only to spicy times, and often, but not always, involves bondage. But we'll get into the types of subdom later. When you see a D/S or a subdom as a tag on something, it stands for dominant and submissive. Often those into subdom are only interested in the fantasy and the spicy use of the dynamic, which is totally valid. However, those who are part of the community beyond a passing interest in a popular online topic have elements in their daily lives. For example, I am a sub. However, I still have a career as a legal editor, though I previously worked in media and book publishing. I still work as a content creator and an author. My husband and we still sit down and discuss and make choices and life decisions together as equals. So being a submissive for me doesn't revoke any of my control in my career, my income, or any of my life choices. But I prefer not making every one of the day-to-day choices in my life. Being submissive gives me the space when I'm outside of work to simply exist and to not be stressed with constant decisions, to feel cherished and safe. But also, I do like the spicy level, but I'm not going to share too much of that with you right now. And no, it's not just because you could go and read my books. It's because it's personal, and YouTube would smite me to hell. So, what types of sub-dom relationships are there? Well, there are a variety of types, more than I can list here. There are some very common ones that we see in typical media or currently in social media. The most commonly seen is the master and servant. This is a relationship in which one person is always the leader and one person is always the follower. As well, this dynamic is not typically about the spice, though spice can be involved. This one is the most common, not because it's the most celebrated, but rather because it's been a foundation of relationships for a long time. This is the dynamic most common in traditional conservative families, and was the norm in the United States for a long portion of history. And it's still often slipped into naturally when couples embrace, knowingly or unknowingly, traditional gender norms. As such, master and servant tends to have the majority of toxic relationships. The dynamic itself is not toxic, but it's easy for people to misappropriate the dynamic to give men control over women. And most of the myths and misunderstandings around subdom culture come from traditional conservative Christian manifestations of the master and servant dynamic. A healthy manifestation of this relationship is when a couple determines the rules and the rules prior to entering the relationship. For example, one partner might do the majority of household tasks, with the intent to display love via services, while the other partner would counter that by frequently giving gifts, date nights, or pampering their partner with princess or prince treatment. A healthy master dom would never request a partner to perform actions they're not comfortable with.
On your knees, darling.
And also respects when their sub is unable or unwilling to perform tasks due to their mood, health, time, or other complications. Ascended Astarion and you would fall into this structure, as well as some of the other categories. Keep in mind, most sub-dom relationships are a mixture of dynamics that we'll list here. Sub-dom lovers, or DS lovers, is the second most common type, and is often combined with master and servant. I don't fall into master and servant, but I do fall into DS lovers. DS lovers is more about spicy times and gratification. It's a dynamic in which the dom tells the sub what to do or what pleasure to accept from them, and the sub often gets off on providing or accepting said services. Often people do indulge in this power play without even realizing it, because it's common for one partner to want to initiate or to take charge, just not usually to the extent that a DS lover does. Subs in these relationships often enjoy feeling punished or used, and doms in these relationships often enjoy punishing, but also rewarding or giving their partners pleasure, often through excessive edging or multiple spicy arrivals. This type of dynamic can range from simply having rough spicy times that might include a hand necklace or pounding very deeply, all the way up to degradation or role-playing non-con situations. Some dark romance book talk girly tropes that fall into these are, but are not limited to, stalkers, masked men, forced marriages, and kidnapping. The next type is DS bondage. DS bondage is a dynamic that you think of when you think of BDSM. It's typically spicy activities that involve bondage, restraint, or pain as pleasure. Like most dynamics, there is a spectrum, and it can span from simply pinning someone and biting them, all the way up to types that involve dungeons that you might see in spicy videos, where the women have to assure you that it was all fun and consenting because of how intense it was. If you know, you know, and I wish I didn't know because I am not on that end of the spectrum. The rest are not going to be discussed in this video outside of this chapter, so we're going to speed run the definitions of them, but they're commonly seen online and in mainstream. The first is the caregiver and little, a dynamic in which one partner acts as a child, a pet, or a helpless individual, and the other is their caregiver. It often involves consensual age play, and this is where you'll find that daddy can be a much more realistic term for daddy. Key holders, this is a spicy dynamic that involves the dom deciding when a sub can engage in spicy activities, achieve spicy arrivals, or indulge in solo spicy actions. Some people also involve role-playing your V-card or your innocence as well. As stated, most people who are sub-dom are a combination of some of these variations, including ones that we haven't listed. The basis of all of the dynamics is the same in some respect, however. The submissive gifts their submission and surrender, and is rewarded by their dom with devotion, reverence, love, adoration, and oftentimes some form of princess or prince treatment. And vice versa, the dom gifts the sub with their dominance and leadership, a freedom from stress and worry and the pressures of choice fatigue, and the submission rewards them with their devotion, reverence, love, adoration, and often some form of worship or kingship treatment. In this video, we'll be zeroing in on the elements of healthy sub-dom relationships, using DS lovers, DS bondage, and servant master, as those are the style and dynamics that Ascended Astarion and you have. Consent is one of the biggest elements in the sub-dom lifestyle. Now, I hate to reference this movie. It is a horrible example of the lifestyle overall, but it's also the most recognizable. Remember the contract in 50 Shades of Grey?
Turn to page 5, Appendix 3, Soft Limits.
With you.
Find a fisting.
I'm all ears.
Strike it out.
You sure?
Yeah?
Consider them gone.
What are butt plugs?
While contracts may not be the norm for everyone, far from it in my experience, setting up ground rules, safe words, and expectations for the relationship is very normal. As well, a sub must consent to any actions taken between the couple, which means despite the dom being the dominant partner, they're not the one who's actually in control. While a dom might decide in the moment which actions or services to partake in, their options were fully decided upon by the partners together. And often the sub is the primary decision maker in what those boundaries are, as the sub is typically the partner who receives or gives the services. So they have the most stake in setting boundaries. An unhealthy relationship dynamic would involve a dom who doesn't respect those boundaries, a dom who pushes their sub to do acts or services that they're not okay with. So does Ascended Astarion respect consent and partake in the setting of boundaries? Let's start with, did Ascended Astarion have the boundaries talk with you? Did you two discuss what your dynamic would be? Yes. During one of the overworld conversations with Halsin, the one that if Halsin keeps saying it to me every 5 minutes one more time, I'm going to castrate him, Astarion confirms that you're both okay with the dynamic of your relationship, implying that those boundaries were set together.
Give oneself wholly, and to have a lover totally in your thrall? A harmless game, until it becomes real. I worry for the two of you, Astarion. For your sake. I hope some of it is just a fantasy, deep in your heart.
Must you take everything so seriously? We're both happy with our arrangement, and that's all that matters.
However, his respect for your boundaries is not absolute. For example, if you ask him not to call you his pet, he basically mocks you and tells you not to be so sensitive. The next topic is on the dynamics of if you're a spawn, which you're not. You're something between a spawn and a true vampire. Vampire brides, or dark consorts, are a vampiric thing in D&D. They're emotionally bound to their master, but they aren't meat puppets in the way that a spawn is. I'm scared. It's my face. Editing kit here. I wanted to clarify that a dark consort vampire bride is technically a type of spawn, like a different breed of spawn, like how there's vampires, vampire drows, muse vampires, etc., etc. They're not controlled because they're still technically a true vampire, but they're also not a true vampire. Spawns are made by killing someone by draining their blood, burying them, and then waiting 24 hours, and then the spawn must dig themselves free from their grave. Vampire brides, on the other hand, are made by biting your beloved 3 times in one night, and on the 3rd bite, you drain them almost to death. Just before they die, you give them at least 1 drop of your blood, making them almost a true vampire. They then experience a euphoria that transforms them into your dark consort. They have all of the abilities of a true vampire, except that they cannot make spawn, and that they are emotionally bound to their master forever. I did a whole video on this topic, so if you want to know more about that and see all of the official sources from the Forgotten Realms and Ravenloft for vampire brides, be sure to check that video out after this one.
That's what you want, isn't it? To be mine. Forever.
Even in undeath, we do not part. For to love a vampire forever, one must live forever. One must be
Eterna amantes, lovers forever, until the world falls down.
As such, our consent is not in question in the way that Astarion's was with Cazador, because Astarion can't control us like we're a puppet. However, he wasn't 100% clear on us with what would happen, that we would be forever unable to love anyone but him, be forever emotionally bound to him, forever linking our souls. So there is an element of uninformed consent with Ascended Astarion. In a fully healthy sub-dom relationship, Ascended Astarion would have informed us more completely of what it meant to become a dark consort. As well, he wouldn't have had moments of mocking our reactions to his new personality, or been so manipulative when he was asking us to become a vampire and we said that we didn't want to. I, as someone who loves D&D and studies lore, vampires being my favorite paranormal creature ever, I didn't need to be informed to consent to becoming a dark consort. I was aware of my choices, and if anything, I was excited to see that I became a vampire bride and not a spawn the first time I played an Ascended run. However, you might not have known that lore, and you would have deserved to be informed before signing your soul away for all eternity to someone who, though they can't control your actions, could control your emotions and make it so that you never wanted to leave them by the connection you have alone. As well, his reactions to you breaking up with him are just not acceptable. I understand he's heartbroken. but he was written in a very toxic way when you attempt to leave him after becoming his consort. Lore-wise, it makes perfect sense. You would legitimately be breaking his heart and soul. But in a relationship dynamic, refusing to ever let you break up is toxic.
What? Why? If you're too stupid to see what you're losing, then you never deserved to have it in the first place. I don't have to take this from you. You ingrate. Don't be stupid, darling. You're mine. Remember, the tadpole is gone, which means your future is mine to decide. How lucky you are that I chose you as my consort. Chose you to help me take Baldur's Gate, then sit by my side as I rule it. There's no backing out now. We'll be together forever. I can promise you that.
However, on the flip side of that, he does allow you to go with Karlach and Lae'zel, and has no issue with you going out and exploring the world by yourself all alone.
So, how are you enjoying the Hells, my dear? I assume they're darling as ever. Oh, my dear. You didn't leave me. I let you go. If I'd have wanted you to stay, I only had to say the word, and you would have been back by my side. But I'm not some controlling monster. I wanted to give you space to see what else is out there. Make your own mistakes and return to me, ready to fully appreciate our life together.
Overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, I would place Ascended Astarion's understanding and respect of consent at a 3. The reason I selected 3 is because he didn't fully inform you, and he does tend to get butthurt when you disagree with him, and we do not stand pouty doms. Power exchange is an important element in sub-dom dynamics. Submission is a gift. Dominance is a reward. Reverence from your dom is a gift. Your surrender is a reward. There must be a balance, neither partner giving or taking more than they give and take in exchange. It's a difference in actions and energies rather than a difference in quality or quantity of services or emotions. Imagine you had a cup. Both of you put into the cup, both of you take out of the cup. It's there for whenever the other person needs it to lean on, and they can take more when they need it, but they give more when they don't. As we addressed in the last section, we're not a spawn, but we are a vampire bride. So there is a level of control over us emotionally that we cannot have over Astarion in exchange. We are both bound to one another. If we died, it would destroy him, and vice versa, which we discussed in the Can Ascended Astarion Love You video. So as long as Astarion doesn't use his control over us, we would be equals on a power exchange level, as far as vampire lore goes. Now, if we're addressing our day-to-day lives, Astarion gives us his support, his love, his devotion, and a portion of his empire in Baldur's Gate, which we learn as much in the epilogue.
6 months from the fall of the Netherbrain, you and Astarion were hosting a grand masquerade in the refurbished ballroom of Cazador's palace. A young elf wearing an ivory mask in the guise of a skinless skull handed you a note as he passed you in the crowd. An invitation written in a frail hand, inviting you to a gathering of the friends and allies who stood with you against the Absolute. Astarion pouted when you read the invitation to him. He'd gladly accompany you, but he would have been happy to host the party himself. As it is, you'll gather in a familiar place, and one altogether more suitable for your reunion.
And how have our dear friends been without us to guide and protect them? Well, of course they do. They were never anything without us leading them. I'm amazed they've even survived this long, honestly. Still, it is good to see them. And good for them to see us, side by side, flourishing. And I am blessed to share it with you, my love. I may have power, but it would be nothing without you. You complete me, and together, we are unstoppable. So, heavens help the fool that tries to get in our way.
Well, in return, we offer Astarion our support, our love, and our devotion while working to protect him and the empire that we're building together. I would argue, however, that if we choose to go with Karlach or Lozelle, we aren't giving Ascended Astarion our support in his empire. However, he allows us to still leave and have our own lives and adventures, even though he could force us to stay by using the emotional link between us. He may be a true vampire, and us his dark consort, but he doesn't abuse that paranormal link between us. Instead, he keeps us equal but different. His partner, his treasured, his favored. It's normal in sub-dom relationships for the dom partner to have a leadership role, which we'll discuss more in the next chapter. So Astarion holding the political power and title while we're the supportive spouse is a perfectly normal and expected dynamic in a healthy sub-dom relationship. It's like yin and yang, each half needed to make a full partnership, both doing what it is that suits them best. And he doesn't abuse that dynamic by assigning us services that we don't want or that don't suit our desires or talents. It isn't like he's turning us into a stay-at-home spouse cleaning his palace, unless that's what we want, but we're adventurers, so we clearly don't want that. So on a scale of 1 to 5 for power exchange, I would give Astarion a 5. I would give him a 6 if I could, but that's because he doesn't let his paranormal powers tempt him into controlling us. Let's discuss leadership in sub-dom relationships. There is a difference between dominance and leadership. Dominance is more aggressive and forceful, while leadership is soft and guiding. A good dom is more than a spicy partner who can dominate a situation with force, aggressive, or control. They also need to be able to be a good leader. Leaders listen. Leaders take your needs and wants into consideration and weigh them against the overall goals of the unit. Leaders inspire. Leaders make you feel safe. It's like they say, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. And that's true in sub-dom as well. A good sub doesn't quit the lifestyle, they quit the poor partner. Ascended Astarion. We don't get to see how effective he is as a leader on the screen. However, the way he's seen in the epilogue as an effective political leader, throwing parties, rubbing elbows, it can be assumed that he's a good leader outside of his relationship. So the question is, does that translate into his relationship? If you choose the evil ending, Astarion doesn't attempt to take the cult from you. He guides you down that path, yes, encouraging you to do it, but he still keeps that win as your win.
My love, we did it. This world is ours, as it should be. I always knew you could do it. I always knew that together we could do anything.
Although he does intend on sharing it with you, it's a total power couple move. His lack of envy, jealousy, or insecurities around you being strong or successful is a sign of a good leader. So although we don't see him leading you in the relationship, I have a good foundation to know that he would be fair, just, and well-balanced leading as a figure in your marriage. Because again, consort means spouse to a royal or a god who holds no constitutional power. So on a scale of 1 to 5, I would give Astarion a 5 on leadership, because I would feel safe following that man into hell. Let's discuss dominance in sub-dom relationships. Dominance is the aggressive and forceful alternative to leadership. To dominate isn't to force in a way that means taking your consent, but rather to take charge of the situation, to initiate or to lead encounters. Dominance can include hand necklaces, dirty words, giving directions, pinning, restraining, bites, etc. But it should always be done with respect and reverence, even when doing something degrading, like calling someone your SL you cheat. And yes, you can respect someone while saying something like that. Because again, you set those boundaries with your partner and you don't do anything that they're not okay with. For example, I prefer praise, so I would never be okay with that. I would say Ascended Astarion's kisses do meet the dominance requirement, as well as his spicy scenes. And before you say it, the pushing away, even that falls into the consenting dominance. You, in the current animations at the time of filming, smirk or smile after being pushed or grabbed. Your pleasure is made fairly evident. Also, even in his spicy scenes as Spawn Astarion, both the first act and the graveyard scene, he's still acting with dominance. Because that push, yum, he's just much more of a worshipping dom as a Spawn. So on the dominance scale of 1 to 5, again, I'm gonna give him a 5. And even if you like Spawn Astarion, I swear you have to save Scum at least once and watch Ascended Astarion scene, because my girly pops, the kitten be dripping. Just saying. So let's talk about some of the toxic myths that people say about sub-dom relationships, and see if Ascended Astarion falls into those. Myth: dom men are just doing DV under the guise of romance. Truth: in a healthy sub-dom relationship, there are no lines crossed that the sub isn't okay with. Something painful is done, it was desired by the sub. If a sub doesn't enjoy something, they have safe words and phrases, like the red light, green light, yellow light method, to end a service or encounter. Even have hand signals, like tapping your hands or your feet, they can do when they're unable to speak during a spicy service. Astarion doesn't abuse us via DV, doesn't do those actions to us unless we request something from him. Even avoids hurting us during the transformation unless we specifically ask him to.
It will only hurt a bit. The pleasure will be far greater than the pain.
When pushed away in the kisses, we react with smiles and smirks. Tab is still smirking. She clearly wants it, and she wants to kneel again and devour him. Myth: subs are masochists and all doms are sadists. The truth? No. Being a sub doesn't mean that you like to be hurt or used. Some subs simply want to be directed or chased. At the same time, some doms don't enjoy causing pain, or only do so if their sub asks. This myth also negates that there are some people who are switches, and that there are also some relationships that are made of two switches who like to play together. It also negates that some people are a sub or a dom 99% of the time. Occasionally, they like to test moments of being a switch, even if they aren't actually one. For references, switches are people who switch between being a sub or a dom. Astarion does enjoy moments in which we enjoy pain, like the sharp bite that hurts for a second. He only enjoys that when we're enjoying it. However, he does enjoy causing pain to others in a non-spicy way. Myth: in sub-dom relationships, doms control every aspect of our lives. Truth? No, not all doms do. When they do, the sub agreed to it. Example: my current spouse does not control anything in my life. Doesn't tell me what to eat, what to wear, or what to do throughout the day. One of my exes, for their privacy, I will call Gray, enjoyed doing that. Loved buying the clothing and deciding the outfits, what I wore for him. He enjoyed taking me out to meals and deciding where we ate and what it was that we ate. I enjoyed that. I liked not having to stress about those choices and be able to focus on other things. Getting to spend time with him and looking beautiful doing it. I'm not going to pretend I don't love princess treatment. Being a career girl does not mean that I don't like having a generous provider partner who will cherish me as much as I cherish them. Ascended Astarion doesn't control every aspect of your life, nor does he seek control without consent. As we said before, you can still leave to be with Karlach or Lizelle. And although at the end of his epilogue he says he's always watching, he still encourages you to explore, talk to your friends, and even still enjoy Halsin's company. Myth: if you're a sub, you have no off switch. You're always consenting and they can do whatever they want to you. Truth? No. In the 24/7 lifestyle or the master and servant, it's not 100% all the time. You still have the right to say no to an act or service. Sub-dom only works when you have trust, communication, and respect for one another and for your boundaries. Astarion still requires you to ask him if you can kiss him. He might be a little manipulative, but he still requires your consent to becoming his consort, even if that consent is uninformed. So, is Astarion a good dom? Well, let's review. He did marry us through uninformed consent. However, what he didn't inform us on, that power and control, he doesn't use it. He keeps the power exchange even despite having the ability to easily overpower and control us. He meets the physical and emotional requirements of sub to dom dynamic while not forcing himself on us in any fashion. So, yes, Astarion does make a good dom. And before you go, a girly gotta pay her bills. I wish that were the case. But as it stands now, I make about enough to buy a bag of coffee a month on book sale, but becoming a full-time content creator and author is the dream, right? If you love dark romances, vampires, gods, poly relationships, and enemies to lovers, then you should check out my book series, The Gemstone Souls, in which the god of vampires chases down his fated mate in order to rebuild his own coven and pantheon. All of the characters are bi and pan, and it is heavy on violence and spice, so adults only. And thank you for being here. Writing and gaming, they're my passions. And with subscribers like you, I get to express those passions. And I hope to see you in the next one. So good night, darling.
And now you're all mine. And I'm all yours. Until morning, at least.